many things now that can occur because of the environment that we live in that there's not a genetic testing for. But if you come from a family where, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. If you come from a family that has cystic fibrosis, it takes two carriers. It takes mom to be a carrier and it takes dad to be a carrier. And if you are a carrier of cystic fibrosis, and the person that you marry is a carrier of cystic fibrosis, I'm sorry. Why do you want to play Russian roulette with conceiving and having your own child? Why don't you adopt a child that needs a family to love them? Why would you take the risk of bringing a child into the world? It's like playing Russian roulette. You got a 1 in 4 chance that, at least Russian roulette, you usually got about 1 in 6.
Right.
Depending upon how big is the chamber. But with a birth defect, you're down to 1 in 4. So why would you take that chance of a 1 in 4 chance that you're going to have a child with cystic fibrosis? There's and one thing that that we had talked about that I found really remarkable, and I thought it was really cool, and I thought, well, wow, how responsible is that? Now, I don't know what's done today, but back in, when she told me about this, so the 80s, so up to the 80s, it was a normal practice that if you were to be married by a rabbi, they have Tay-Sachs syndrome. They have some pretty horrible genetic things that can be passed on. So if you want the rabbi to marry you, you must have genetic testing done. And if either one of you comes up as a carrier, I was told by this genetic specialist, who was Jewish, that if you came up as a carrier, the rabbi would not marry you until you brought proof that you had been sterilized. You know what? I call that being extremely responsible. I'm sorry. I call that being extremely responsible. Why would you want to bring a child into the world that would have such a debilitating disease and ultimately an early death?
Sure. I can understand
well,
that. So, it's a legitimate question.
It's
maybe a hard question, but it's a legitimate one.
It is, and when that child's born and you're living it, taking care of that child with such incredible needs, it doesn't mean that you don't love and adore that child, but you learn from that child that, if this could have been prevented, you certainly as a parent would have wanted to prevent it. And if you carry genetic coding that is very high risk, we have so many children that need loving parents, that need someone to love them, that are healthy in some standards, because let's face it, once a child has been in foster care for too long, or once a child's been tossed around in foster care, or once a child has been in an abusive situation with a parent or parents, after a certain amount of time, by age 5, there's a lot of foundation there that has been damaged.
Sure.
And it may seem to be okay and able to deal with it through a certain amount of years. But hey, we all know being parents, doing the best that you can. Teenage years, that's a whole new game.
Right.
It's a whole new game. And if there's a lot of things that have been emotionally injurious to a child prior to age 5, and they're saying age 3 now, that outcome come teenage years is going to be pretty wild and crazy for the most part. So I want to get back here as to how this the methyl groups. The methyl groups are the simplest form of our compounds in our body. The methylization uses the process of donating methyl groups to a substrate. Okay, so these methyl groups, they need to be bound to a substrate. And so a substrate, in order for this methyl group to start its process of cellular regeneration, of health on a cellular level, this methyl group, the substrate that it binds to, is your RNA or your DNA. Organic chemicals internally, externally. So once it binds, this methyl group binds with the substrate, which is an RNA, DNA, organic factors internally, externally. It then has to bind to an enzyme. Okay. So here's where your enzymes come into the process. If the functional enzymes at any part are altered and damaged, replication of that is going to be damaged. You can't get 100% on something that's 80%.
Right.
Okay, you
Makes
can't get
sense.
100% off something that's 50% damaged.
True.
Okay, you're not going to
True.
get 100%. So then there's the other cofactors that are needed, and your cofactors are your nutrients. That's what's going to move. That's what's going to move this forward in the body of replicating healthy genetics. So, the key cofactors here, B complex. And out of that B complex is your B12 and your folic acid.
Right.
If you've got a methylation problem with folate, which is folic acid, you're going to have problems with your serotonin and your melatonin and your epinephrine. Okay, so you're going to have a problem with mood. What do we have? The number one highest amount of drugs being written in a prescription is antidepressants.
Right. Oh yeah, that's pretty. Hell,
That is the number one written drugs are antidepressants.
wow.
So we go back to damaging, how we damage these methylization groups in the body, which are damaged by, the chlorine, the ammonia, the 100 and some or 400 and some chemicals that are in the municipal water, the insecticides, the pesticides, the genetically engineered, patented chemicals that are impregnated into seeds that grow crops that at a certain part of their flowering produce their own innate insecticide. And then you want to eat the animal. You want to eat, the soybeans. I'm sorry, soybeans, forget it. If soy is not fermented and organic, it has no place in your diet. It absolutely has no place in your diet. So a lot of these soy foods that are not fermented. You should not be consuming. Okay?
Is soy and tofu the same?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure.
That's right. And it's soybean curd is
Okay.
tofu. But if it's not fermented, don't eat it.
Okay, all right. I don't need it anyway, so
Yeah.
I have nothing to worry about.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I think I told you about the time that my husband come home and we had just bought a side of beef and I was cooking it up and the dogs were at the back door and there were boxes all over the living room and the cabinets were empty and it was like, we're not eating this way anymore. He was a pretty good trooper. It didn't last real long. But, as far as 100% organic and 1980. But he did not become a fan of tofu. It didn't matter what I soaked and marinated it into. So one of the first processes of methylation is the thiamine. So we're going to talk about, some of these amino acids. The thiamine, methionine. Those are the things that start the process with the breakdown of toxins in the body, building and replicating new healthy cells, being able to have these methyl groups that we were designed and created to have them properly replicate within the body so that we can enjoy health. So these methyl groups, the substrates, so I said it's got to be bound to the DNA, RNA, organic chemicals. It can also attach itself to hormones and to immune cells and to receptors so that it affects the neurotransmitters and the nervous system. So methylation function, it's able to turn off and on the genes. So from a cancer standpoint, if that gene cannot be shut off, then the gene is out of control and it replicates the cancer cell. If you shut it off, the cell then knows that it's not a trophoblast cell anymore. It's not continuing to multiply and grow. The process of chemicals and toxins, the biotransformations that takes place if these methylation process is damaged, then we have damage from all of the excessive toxins in the body. What ends up happening is they cannot replicate to make healthy new cells, and the RNA coding in the body is damaged. So this methylation process, it builds T cells. That's your thymus 1, thymus 2, your T cells, your immune system. That's when you're exposed to something and the body has an invader and you need to make an antibody for it. It's the T1 or T2 cell, T2. That's going to take that back to the thymus. That's going to make the antibody. That's going to go out. Imagine the Pac-Man game. Those T cells are going to be released and they're going to search and destroy everything that has that particular shape, whether it be a square, a diamond, triangle, whatever. It has a triangle shape and it's going to seek out all the triangles. Okay, so that's an analogy of how to think about it when the T cells are released with the impression of the invader. They just go out and they seek and they attach and they destroy. And that's a methylation process that triggers that.
Okay.
So it builds the NK cells. Those are the natural killer cells in the from the immune system.